Well, good evening. It's over for another year. Women's Henley Regatta. We've just had Championship Eights, bombed down the course, and it was an absolutely stonking race, particularly if you're from Molesey or UL. Well done. I think that was a popular result for them to take the win there. And welcome to the second installation of the rowing notebook from Women's Henley Regatta. Possibly the best 2 weeks of the year, where we get ourselves between the booms, the hallowed waters of Henley, the theatre of dreams. That is the Henley stretch, because not only have we got Henley Women's this weekend that we've thoroughly enjoyed, next weekend on Friday we've got Henley qualifiers, a couple of days to draw breath, and then it's Henley Royal Regatta. So the rowing notebook yesterday focused on the generic trend of physicality in women's rowing, and how as athletes and coaches and rowers we can kind of manage that. And today we'll return a little bit more to the traditional format of talking about the racing, because it's just a little bit more manageable to do today, where we've had the semis and the finals. And I will not be able to go through every single event that has happened today, but I'm going to cherry pick a few and kind of summarize the story, how we got to where we did, talk about some of the racing, talk about some of the technical factors that might be influencing the results, and then also have a look forward to Henley Royal Regatta and what things might mean. We're going to start off with a couple of junior events, because Henley Women's Regatta is absolutely brilliant for junior events. I am sad that they've done away with the Junior 16 events. I did think that they were really good, and I thought they were also very important for a regatta that is to encourage pathways of participation. But nevertheless, we are still treated to some great racing in the women's events, the women's junior events, and we'll kick off with the junior quads. Quarterfinals. We had a quarterfinal first thing today, and interestingly, I thought, was the exit of a good-looking Hartbury quad at the hands of Sir William Perkins. Chris Boddy coached there, and the athletes at Perkins, they switched into the Coxless 4 for national schools, and have subsequently boated an 8 and a quad. I believe the quad is their top boat, and they overturned Hartbury. I think it'd be fair to say it was a more stylish row from Perkins, with Hartbury certainly adopting the more physical approach. And I think it would be fair to say that going into the event, Hartbury were probably the marginal favourites. But that set up two semi-finals. Tideway Scullers against Sir William Perkins School, and it was the Tideway Scullers crew who came out on top, and I think that probably follows the form book. And then what I think a lot of people would consider to be almost a final in its own right, where Marlow went up against Wycliffe, and a crew that I fancied for the year, really, since seeing them ahead of the Charles, is Marlow. And they were victorious against Wycliffe. So off the start in the final, it was Marlow who established a marginal lead. I would say lots more aggression in the style that Tideway Scullers were rowing. Arguably a bit short. And I was looking like, when are they going to do some form of transition here and maybe move on to something which is both sustainable and just focusing on a bit more length. They didn't do that, and by Foley, the half-length lead, or three-quarters of a length lead that Marlow had at the barrier, had extended to a length, and then a two-length lead by the finish through Foley. Eve Pinsent at stroke, you could really see her respond to a call from, I don't know who makes the calls in that boat, but it was a fairly inspirational press and lever through the water. The boat jumped, and then you could just see that rhythm and ratio really strike out. So clearly something in the genes of the Pinsent family that it gets boat moving attuned and creates pretty awesome stroke people. So well done to that Marlow crew. We now start looking towards the Diamond Jubilee event, which is at Henley Royal Regatta in a couple of weeks' time. And we have a few overseas crews joining the draw. We have Boulogne 1992, Aveyron from France, Los Gatos, and Green Lake and Sydney. Of those, based on early season form, I'd say that it's the Los Gatos crew that are most likely to be the challengers from the overseas entities. However, the Marlow quad got the better of Los Gatos all the way back at the head of the Charles. I think Marlow are going faster and faster. So early prediction, I was going to say, is that it's Marlow's year, and hopefully they'll be nailed on to keep the trophy on this side of the Atlantic. But regardless, we're going to be some pretty epic racing. Other junior women's events, let's look at the eights for a minute. Interesting, no Shiplake. Believe a combination of a bit of illness, clashing with exams, and just good results earlier on in the year. Means that they're not here. They're taking the chance to chillax a little bit and work on things on their own, and rightly so, right? They've rightly deserved things to earn that time and space before striking out for the Prince Phillip Challenge Cup at Henley Royal Regatta. St Edwards are not here either. I understand that it's because 2 or 3 members of the St Edwards squad have recently joined St Edwards School on scholarships, and they are therefore ineligible for the event here. Well, what that means for Henley Royal Regatta is yet to be seen, I believe. But that's quite telling, because these guys were silver medalists at national schools, and it's clearly, you know, a big thing for the draw, with that crew being absent. So in many ways, it was the Headington show, and we're just going to sort of walk across the field now. I'm going to try. Oh, right. Have I been silhouetted the whole time? If I've been walking against a silhouette the whole time, I do apologise. So let's just try walking it this way for a little bit. So in many ways, it was expected to be the Headington show. They were rowing, I think it'd be fair to say, with more aggression on the front end, and certainly I saw from them at Nat Schools and other races. So that was good to see, a bit between their teeth. And I'm certain that they'll go away from here for the next 10 days or so before Henley Royal Regatta starts, and continue refining that. Interesting to see an early exit from Green Lake at the hands of a strong Latimer upper crew. I think that was unfortunate for Green Lake, who made the trip across the Atlantic. They are in the draw for Henley Royal Regatta as well, so we'll get to see them again. I'm not sure how much time they've had as well between arriving and starting racing for Henley Women's. So they will be more acclimatised, it's fair to say, in the next 10 days. Semi-final, Latimer versus LEH. In what was a really strong race. And then Headington against Sir William Perkins led through to a Headington LEH final. And I think, as expected, Headington walked away with it. But again, looking to Henley Royal Regatta, who else is to come in? We've got Chicago Rowing Foundation, Deerfield, TBC Rowing, and Windsor Park crew to join. And I do wonder how much, what was it that we've got to qualify down to? I think they're going down to 24 crews from the draw at the moment. It's going to be pretty tough for anybody who wasn't racing here and who was not one of those international crews to make it into Henley Royal Regatta. Basically, I think it's going to be pretty challenging. So we'll see what happens. But I think Henley Royal will be a bit of a domestic domestic affair between Shiplake and Headington, certainly, and we'll wait and see what happens with Teddy's and the situation involving rowers there. I think that kind of draws a conclusion under the junior events. One of the greatest events, I'd say, good spectacles to watch here, was the Aspirational Academic events. Really high standard at the top end, and a good amount of depth as well. So it wasn't just, the final where we saw some really good rowing. We saw it elsewhere as well. And just single out, if I may, well done Bath, Bristol and Nottingham for the work you've done to step on this year. It was a delight seeing you in the draw and rowing well into the quarters and semi-finals. I personally enjoyed seeing that, so well done to you. No Durham, however. Durham went over to Aspirational Regatta last weekend, where their first 8 set a new club record. So they are going very well, as we suspected. Certainly having beaten the University of London at Met. So Durham are stepping on and on and on. So they had 3 8s at Marlow racing in the open event alongside male crews. Their fastest boat made the M final, did 89% of GMT, so not super quick, right? Particularly bearing in mind the winning men's crew was at 96%, but they're still quick, right? And they've got to come into the draw for Henley, as do Orca, Nearest, Bates USA, Boston USA, Brown A and B, Lager, Groningen, Octagon from Norway, 2 Husky crews from the University of Washington, A and B, they're not slow, and Yale A and B, who are not slow. So again, I wonder, if you weren't in the draw here and you're not one of those crews from overseas, what are the chances of you getting into the Island Challenge Cup? So compelling stuff, really. But yeah, semi-final, Brooks against Bath, Brooks won, and then Edinburgh against Nottingham, so Nottingham looking really neat in the other semi-final. That set up a Brooks versus Edinburgh final, and it goes the way of the form book, with Brooks looking far the more physical crew, certainly as they went past the enclosures at and around the barrier. And really they just rode their hallmark style of aggression on the front end. So whilst there has been inconsistency, and that's as much as I will say on the matter, in their coaching in the build-up to this event, the female athletes at Brooks nevertheless have clearly brought home the bacon. In no other particular order, just in what it's in my notebook, Women's Championship quads. So for the whole year, really, it's been the Leander and Molesey show, but they are joined in the draw here by a Reading Nottingham composite, and that's a sort of pseudo GB boat. So in the semi-final, the combination crew were in the lead by half a length at the barrier, and then won by just under a second at the finish. And then Leander also won their semi to set up the anticipated final. So interesting to see Molesey go out at the hands of that composite. And then in the final, well, I was really surprised by the way it went. The combination composite had a really aggressive start, and I thought, yeah, fair one, right? You're not going to race a championship event and tickle the boat down the course. But as they transitioned at about quarter mile, I would just say that the Leander crew seemed to come off the front end of the stroke in a way that the boat almost just died. They were certainly sending the back end, but they'd lost the boat at the front end, and I don't know whether they were tired, hot, whatever, but it just wasn't as dynamic on the front end as the composite crew. And so by the barrier, the Reading crew had around about a length of lead, and they stretched that out to 2 lengths at the finish. So I think a bit of a surprise there at the margin of the victory, and a bit of a surprise in how the Leander crew rode. I am sure there are reasons behind it, and I'm also sure that they will be away over the next 10 days or so, polishing that and getting ready to smash it up, which is the technical term, at Henley Royal Regatta. Let's talk about Women's Championship pairs, and I just want to say how much I enjoyed seeing the Oxford University Boat Club pair, and I just thought they rode really well. Whilst the Oxford University men are clearly going through a period of reinvention, the women under Alan, under him, are going well. They were racing a Brown crew, who were the reserve pair for the Brown A boat, who went out in the second round of the Aspirational event. I believe it might have been the championship. But anyway, not bad for your reserve crew to find itself in the final up against Oxford. And I thought that Brown crew rode really well. However, the classy Oxford crew continued to row with class and won by 3 lengths. Let's talk about, very quickly, Women's Championship 8s before I start to wrap up on a couple of things. Women's Championship 8, so several big early round exits. And as I list them, you're going to say, well, that's obvious because, you know, that's half the people dropping out in the first round, because that's the nature of the beast at Henley, right? Half the people go home at the end of day one. But I think it goes to show the standard of the event when a Leander Club and Yale composite, Brown A, UL, Brooks A, Newcastle, and a KSRV Nord crew, so a sort of decent Dutch academic crew, all got booted out in the first round. And that Dutch crew going out to Thames B. So I think high profile first round exits, the first thing that I would say stands out in that event. And then it sort of careered its way through to semi-final A, where a much fancied Molesey UL composite won by 4 seconds over Thames B. Well done to Thames B for getting to that semi-final. And then in semi-final B, Thames had about half a length over Leander at the barrier, and they went on to extend that to around about a second for the win overall. So that set up a Molesey UL composite versus Thames final, and Molesey UL went off hard, fast, aggressive, and held on for the win. Guys, so I can't talk about every single event here. That would be absolutely impossible to do. But what I can do for a moment then is just talk about a few club things, and then close on some comments about what I think is almost like an unfortunate success. So club highlights for me, and I'm sort of staying away from all the big names, right? Because you always expect them to kind of be up there. University of Edinburgh with an 8 in the Aspirational Academic 8 final, 2 quads in each semi-final of Aspirational quads, a pair in the semi-final of Championship pairs, and then a decent development 4 in that event as well, who went out, I think, unfairly early. I just think it goes to show that the depth of women's rowing at Edinburgh is great. University of St Andrews as well wins in, let me get this right, wins in aspirational doubles. Right. That aspirational double, I believe, are the European champions in beach sprints. So, a few eyebrows raised on the riverbank as to whether or not a European Championship crew should be eligible to run an aspirational event. Is it cheating? No, of course not, because it is what it is, right? However, I anticipate there being some tightening of the rules ahead of next year, because as beach sprinters with European medals, should there be an aspirational event? I would argue no, But Lewis McHugh, coach there, well done. You know, they're eligible. So guess what? You won, and you won within the rules. So good job. As did their Aspirational Coxless 4, outbeating a very tidy looking Imperial crew. And Hansi Marshall was very unlucky in championship singles. She was finalist there. I understand that she has she picked up some weed or something on her fin, which caused her pace to really suffer in the final third of the race. So she unfortunately was not successful in converting 3 finals into 3 wins. But Coach Lewis McHugh, kudos to you. But I will close on a question, and that is, has Women's Henley experienced catastrophic success? I would say yes, it has done. Because as I've enjoyed the last 3 days, I cast my mind back when I used to come down here following Marlow, having been a male athlete racing over there. So I'm going to take my bag off because it's really starting to dig into my neck. And the standard of the racing, the size of the regatta is just, huge compared to what it used to be. And I think to myself now, with much more, still not quite, but much more parity between Henley Royal Regatta and what you see at Henley Women's Regatta. What is the right thing for Henley Women's Regatta to do now? The school eights, right? The school eights. We use that as an example. What changes are we going to see in that between now and Henley Royal Regatta in 2 weeks' time? Well, we're going to see Shiplake turn up, who've decided to rest themselves for this event. We might see Teddies. We're going to see some international crews turn up. But we're not going to see anyone else come into the Henley Royal Regatta draw who wasn't in the draw here. And arguably there's a lot of non-qualifiers here who will probably try and qualify for Henley Royal Regatta. So, and I'm going to pose this as a critical question, and it's not a criticism of Henley Women's Regatta, but it's a critical question, which is, in what way has Henley Women's Regatta served as a pathway event to develop junior women's sport at Henley Women's Regatta? Because you've already got the opportunity for the people who are racing here to race again in 2 weeks' time. And I guess you could say the same thing is similar in aspirational academic events in the island, and arguably in junior women's 4s as well. So it's a nice problem to have. In many ways, what started off as an event to try and create parity has done a lot of that already. What started off to be a great pathway regatta has kind of like mission success done that. There's no longer junior 16 events here, and I understand that there's reasons for that. And I'm going to caveat everything I've just said by the fact this is a brilliant regatta. I've had a great time the last few days. My kids have just absolutely loved it as well. And it's almost more enjoyable to be at than Henley Royal Regatta. So everything I've just said is like caveat by the fact that, but it's absolutely brilliant. So I guess the question I pose, dear viewer, is how does Henley Women's Regatta support equality and development of female sport over the next cycle of equality? Not the equality cycle that we've just had. How does it also avoid becoming, as it seems to be, and again, this is going to be critical, but it's in a nice way, right? How does it avoid becoming Henley Royal Regatta over 1,500 metres 10 days before Henley Royal starts? Because I do think it's got a place on the calendar. I don't know the answer, right? I'm just a rowing coach. But what I do know is that the standard here has been excellent. The camaraderie has been superb. It's been brilliant to be at. It is so different from what it used to be. It's bolder, it's bigger, and I want it to continue doing that sort of stuff. But I think it's got more of a pathway route than it being a destination regatta. I think. I don't know. So if you know, comment down below. There you go. I've done like the YouTubery thing where I've quoted controversy, and now I'm certain that there'll be lots of people retweeting this. And don't call me a chauvinist, okay? Because I'm not being a chauvinist. I'm genuinely not. I am just making a comment about the fact that a regatta has made massive strides forward, and it feels like it's almost, you know, mission success in many ways. Right, I am now going to bid you farewell because I've now got to drive back up to sunny Yorkshire, and that's us. Right, so from Henley Women's Regatta, signing off. Athletes, amazing. Coaches, amazing. Organising committee, absolutely amazing. I also like the Thameside Social. That's a great place to hang out. So I'm going to be back down for qualifiers in 5 days' time. Looking forward to giving you some reviews there. I'm probably going to try and do quick fire vlogs after each round of qualification is announced. And then we'll go from there. I might even do something after the draw. Right, ladies and gentlemen, auf Wiedersehen.